What you don't know can't hurt you, but what you search for might get you.
Hello, spooky friends. You guys are doing the hard bit for me, finding interesting things to cover. T-Dog4344 gave me a list. Some were already on my radar, but I hadn't seen Freaky Links, though it tickled a distant memory.
Now read all of
Freaky Links is the story of Derek Barnes and his faithful Scoobies, running a website, the titular FREAKYLINKS.com, investigating the strange and mysterious. The show has an interesting pedigree. Back in 1999, you may remember a tiny film that broke everyone's brains and created a new horror genre, The Blair Witch Project. I'm prone to motion sickness, but I still made it through a theater showing. I hated it a little because I was so flippin' sick, but I watched it later on a small screen and got to appreciate what a gem it is. Months after Blair Witch's release, rumors were swirling that two of the guys behind Haxan Films, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, were planning a pilot for the Fox network for a show called Fearsum. Myrick would write the pilot, and then they'd hand things over to David Goyer. With me so far? Because things are about to get confusing. Fox orders the pilot. Creators are now listed as Greg Hale, another Blair Witch producer, and Ricardo Festiva, a pseudonym for David Goyer. It's never good news when somebody uses a pseudonym. Goyer and the late Tommy Thompson are the executive producers. They produce the pilot, and things go sideways. The story of the pilot is about Derek finding his twin brother, who has self-shuffled off this mortal coil, and then 2 years later receiving a video of him with a current timestamp. Is Adam still alive? The idea was to have a Monster of the Week with an overarching storyline of Derek looking for his brother. Fox found this too intense and edgy. Thompson said, "Your mama is too intense and edgy," and left to be replaced by David Simkins. Soon after, Goyer was fired as head writer. Goyer and Hale distanced themselves from the project they'd created, while Haxan Films, which includes Myrick and Sanchez, decided they'd rather concentrate on the website. So now you have a pilot that sets up a story that the network has dropped. You have a character, Vince Elsing, played by Dennis Christopher, who has nothing to do because he was an integral part of that plot. He still gets billed in the front credits like he's a regular cast member, but he only shows up in a few episodes for no real reason. And on top of all this absolute they show the episodes out of order. So, what was the result? Pretty good show. Ethan Embry leads the cast as Derek Barnes, the charismatic and occasionally infuriating fearless leader. He tends to run headlong into danger and is not a good listener. Embry has since done, well, everything. His partner is Jason Tatum, played by Kareem Prince. Jason is one of the few characters who gets a good episode during the short run, and as a result, he has the most depth, but not until episode 8. If you put Prince's name into Wikipedia, it redirects to Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, so I guess that's what he's up to these days. Lizette Carrion plays Lon Williams, who is the computer wizard. We never learn much about the character, but she gets over her crush on Derek by dating J. August Richards of Angel, so she has good taste. Carrion hasn't done much acting lately, and has 484 followers on Instagram, which is more than I have. Chloe Tanner is a psychologist and was Adam's fiancée, which is how she gets roped into the whole Freaky Links situation. She's played by Lisa Sheridan, who I can't say anything snarky about because she died, and that would be in bad taste. Finally, we have poor Vince Elsing, played by Dennis Christopher. What a waste of a wonderful actor. At least he kept the coveted last build with an "and" in front of his name. Must have had a good agent. Freaky Links is rooted in the time when the web was magical. It was full of flash intros and individual websites run by complete crackpots, and lots of black and red. GeoCities made us all go a little mad with power. It was the time of, if we can just upload this to the web, all our problems will be solved. I weep for our innocence. In fact, the Freaky Links website was intended to be integral to the show, and included its own subplot. The site is preserved by Haxon's website, and man, I wish more producers did that. The link, along with lots of others, is in the description, but be aware you'll need some kind of Flash Player plugin for it to work. Diary of a Madman is Derek's blog, dating from back to when he took over the site in 1998, and the tone is pure early weblog. Nearly every site mentioned in the show is findable on the Wayback Machine, with the exception of Sick and Disgusted. There was no way they were going to actually put up a shock site, so they intentionally put an ampersand in the URL so it wouldn't work. I love this larger picture, which is what the Haxon guys were known for, but exploring it all would take weeks. In the Blair Witch tradition, the actors were given cameras and filmed everything, and a lot of that footage ended up in the final product. Ethan Embry and Lisa Sheridan are both quoted as having had a blast filming. I have a few favorite episodes, and you know the ghost stories are going to be on that list. First, Subject 313 stars Connor Trinneer, Star Trek Enterprise, who turns to FreakyLinks to find out what's going on with his pregnant wife. He's afraid she may be possessed. Turns out it's an angry ghost trying to get everyone's attention so they can bring her murderer to justice. Is that my favorite trope? Maybe not, but I have watched Stir of Echoes about 30 times. Subject, The Stone Room. This one is a nod to the Stone Tape. By the way, cool movie if you haven't seen it. Where the memories of the past are embedded in a building. Though in this case, the memories get physical. The episode features Jason going back to help his family. We find out that Jason trained to be a lawyer, and his family firm is fighting a large real estate conglomerate trying to steal land from an old lady. Okay, a little on the nose, but it's a good ghost story, and notorious scene stealer Constance Zimmer is in it. One of the darker episodes is Subject Live Fast, Die Young, starring Eric Balfour, with a tiny cameo from one of my favorites, Zahn McLarnon. A couple is using joy juice, a substance extracted from humans experiencing fear, to become temporarily unkillable. Derek throws in with them to get the story. You pretty much know how it's going to end right from the beginning, but it's wrenching anyway. Another favorite is Subject Sunrise at Sunset Streams. Jason finds out he has a geriatric fan club when Betty, played by none other than Betsy Palmer, calls the freaks because she's having trouble with a skunk ape. I really think she should have been the last episode of the show because it's a fun take on a classic Florida cryptid, who apparently steals panties. Honorable mention to Subject Desert Squid, Myth or Legend, for the appearance of John Billingsley, who is in everything and is always great. There are bits of pure joy for genre fans, both horror and sci-fi. In Subject Edith Keeler Must Die, Orlando Ashley is a street vendor who tells the crew about mole people in the sewers. He's wearing a sweatshirt that says Edith Keeler Must Die. It has nothing to do with the episode, but it leads to this interaction.
Jungle Plum, baby. Get your Jungle Plum on. Keeler, what's up with that, man? Go. Go.
And in case you don't get the reference,
Keeler must die.
in Subject The Harbingers, Angus Scrimm of Phantasm fame plays Wilson Ashcroft, an author with far too brief a role, who tries to warn the town of Cassadaga that there are alien creatures controlling them. And if the freakies can just upload the book to the internet, everything will be better. By the way, Cassadaga is a real place in Florida, known as a haven for mediums of all kinds. The music throughout the show is a pure snapshot of the year 2000, little hungover from the 90s, dipping a toe into the overproduced 21st century. The first title song, used in the unaired pilot when it was still called Fearsum, was Powerman 5000's Nobody's Real, which fit with the original concept of a supernatural techno-thriller. I actually like the official title theme better, a custom piece written by 3 guys whose names I'll stumble over 15 times so they're up on the screen. I wish it were a full song instead of just a title clip. Just a note, because I know you'll ask. Though I know of someone who got hold of it a year ago, I can no longer find the unaired pilot. If you have a copy, I would really like to see it. If Fox ever tried to bring FreakyLinks to DVD, which they won't, licensing all the music would be a nightmare. There's plenty of stock stuff, but also lots and lots of current pop and catchy songs by bands who never made it big. There's a full playlist that still lives on Reddit, and I'll link it below. I got curious writing this and checked Spotify. Yep, There's a playlist there too. Listening now. While the show that Fox put out was a lot of fun, and in no way deserved to be cancelled, it lacked the cohesion it would have had if all the original creators hadn't walked or been fired. But I'm not sure that's what killed it. Crazy fast editing was the trend at the time, so that wasn't the problem. But the found footage style was brand new. A whole lot of people didn't like it or couldn't watch it. It was a long time before I was able to watch it myself. Without the original storyline, there wasn't much to entice people who needed to get used to the format. It was a great monster of the week, but it didn't have a long-term hook, and it desperately needed that to survive. Of course, Fox was the last network to give it a fair shake. Sadly, they were also the first stop for pitching genre shows at the time. If the show were remade, that early internet magic is gone, so there would have to be a different tone. On the other hand, nostalgia of the period is big now. People are used to alternate reality games, so they could have a lot of fun with the web tie-ins. Heck, maybe some enterprising soul could release a new show straight to YouTube, but don't get sued. Call it Leaky Franks or something. Hey, by the way, if this is the kind of thing you like, stab that subscribe button. It had it coming. The best copy of the show I could find is from the Internet Archive, linked below. The copies on YouTube are total potato vision. I've also posted the correct viewing order, going from production numbers, because nothing available is actually in order. Special thanks to the fans, especially Mondo Strange, who tried to keep the lamp lit long after the oil was gone, and to Haxon for preserving this bit of Internet history. And thank you, spooky friends. I love you to death. Good night.